Wait, hold on. His first skill is physical damage? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way he's doing this. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And today I want to talk about MODOK. Yes. As you can see from the beginning of the clip, I was using MODOK recently in Shadowland. And I want to talk to you guys today about a clear I did with MODOK. Not because it created some kind of amazing moment, not because I executed his skills off perfectly, but this kind of Shadowland clear perfectly illustrates that sort of medium level difficulty, that just right difficulty that I was describing to you guys a few days ago when I was explaining that the content in the game right now in Marvel Future Fight is either just way too hard or way too easy. Now, for starters, this particular clear was encouraged to me by a couple of fans in the Twitch chat. They wanted to see if I could do a low-level stage with MODOK. I believe it was Shadowland stage 5 or 6 or 7. It was before 10, absolutely. And I essentially don't like MODOK because obviously he's a very poorly made character, very weak, very few iframes. I believe he only has an iframe on his 3rd skill with this uniform. But he does have 2 pretty interesting skills to note of that are going to make this Shadowland clear possible, and that was kind of my initial thinking for how I could approach the problem, because I was given a solution: use MODOK to beat Shadowland, and then I had to figure out how I could work MODOK into the stage without just making him a dummy for another person to clear the stage and do most of the damage, because I wanted to get it done primarily with MODOK. They can do what they want. It's their channel. So I knew that with his uniform he has Puppet Master, which gives him the webbing. So that gives him some form of crowd control, but that was about it. The only other difference is with this uniform. It has a particularly interesting effects. His regular attack, his auto attack, will reduce the enemy's attack speed and movement speed. So because MODOK is so good, you decided to make it basic attack only. No, his basic attack reduces their movement speed, and I think that's MODOK's only chance of doing anything worthwhile. And I think that this is an effect that Netmarble hasn't used enough in their designs for characters. I think it would be very cool to see a defensive character. They could have done it for Blue Marvel that triggers this kind of effect when he gets hit. You can see that a lot in the MOBA that I play, Arena of Valor. It happens for a lot of characters with items that they purchase for their equipment, and also skills that they cast will reduce enemy attack speed or movement speed or both. And it's a very powerful effect because if you reduce their attack speed or movement speed by enough, I'm talking 40%, 50%, 60%, it's basically like they're stunned, because they're moving so slowly. It's same thing as a regular crowd control skill like a webbing or a snare or a bind. So I think it's a pretty interesting concept, and essentially my idea was I would spam his first skill and I would spam his auto attack, and that would be the crux or the kind of core of the win. I would slow down the enemies enough they couldn't kill my 2 tanks fast enough, and then when I wasn't slowing them down with my auto attack, I would be webbing them up to provide pure crowd control. And I figured that those 2 elements together, provided that MODOK has some damage, although his energy attack is not that low. It's actually not that high for a tier 1 character. 14,000 is pretty decent. I went ahead midway through and I slapped some 4-star Uru on him to boost up his energy attack, but I only did that, and I kept trying, but I kept running into different difficulties, and I had to switch around which tank I was trying to use, which 2 defensive characters I was trying to use use because they kept dying in one way or another. Green Goblin was a great one for his uniform with the ultimate serum, but I kept switching my other tank because they just weren't surviving long enough to provide MODOK with the protection that he needed. That was kind of the second part of the clear. I needed two characters to just distract the other enemies in the rumble while I stood back and fired from far away, kind of like a ranged character would. I need someone tankier. The last thing that I wanted to do to try and get over the hump was to give him a obelisk, because he had no obelisk at the time. I had already rolled overdrive for him months ago, believe it or not, but he had no obelisk, and I ended up rolling one that was dodge based with cold damage or cold resist and invincibility. The reason why I went with dodge was because I just needed to give him more survivability. I didn't think that giving MODOK more damage was going to make me clear faster, but I thought if I could give him a little bit of dodge, it might actually help him, you know, avoid some attacks and survive long enough to crowd control long enough to actually win. So with the dodge obelisk and with an improvement to his uniform, which I also rolled to have dodge, and luckily the first option is Marvel's Doctor Strange, so it gives me the mythic bonus. And this is where I initially had the idea for dodge, because I can get such a giant bonus from this one effect. And here's where kind of my thinking might differ from yours. You might see this and say, well, Cynicalex, skill cooldown is the best stat here, you should definitely go for that, and then you don't need skill cooldown somewhere else. That's true, but I'm only using one of MODOK's skills. Additionally, attack speed is not going to matter too much, because I'm already pretty close to the cap anyways with my cards. So I thought a little bit more defense with the dodge would really help, and 1500 combined with the 16% that I got from this obelisk means that I ended up giving my MODOK a lot of dodge, and that actually ended up being the contributing factor to his survivability, in addition to some pretty clever positioning. Wow, okay. Cold, resist, dodge, and 2 seconds of invincibility. That's as good as he's gonna get, ladies and gentlemen. That is somehow too good for MODOK. 45% dodge. I ended up using his third skill a lot as well, as you will see in the final clear. I didn't use this one for damage, I just used it to get enemies off of me, because when you use an iframe in a rumble, the enemies will go and try and find a new target for their attack. So I would use the third skill when I had more heat on me, or I had too much attention from Venom or Carnage or multiple enemies, and then I would hope that through the iframe they would find another target like Green Goblin or Crossbones, and then I could return and resume webbing them up and slowing them down. So I wanted to illustrate this and show you guys the step-by-step process for how I thought about it, so it can give you some insight into how I see characters and how I kind of try and set up certain situations that I want to occur in Shadowland, especially for a rumble. I also want to give you some motivation and some inspiration if you have some kind of lower tier characters or some neglected characters that you don't use and you find Shadowland to be a bit of a breeze. Give yourself a challenge and try to clear some lower end stages with some of these heroes. Sure, you can't use MODOK on stage 25 or in a high stage, but in those low stages, I think 1 to 15 is the sweet spot for Shadowland, where you can really have fun with some underused characters like MODOK, and you can push yourself to see just how well you understand the game, how well you can time your different skills and combos, and how much use you can put out and make out of and pull out of these forgotten characters. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this kind of special moment with MODOK. Subscribe if you want to support me and you enjoy the content, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, MODOK! Who do you know that is better than the man that you're looking at right now? Who in the world could take this bag of garbage character and turn him into a winner?